Hi, welcome to Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Today I'm reading to you from Mission Target, a Jake Wolfe novel by Mark Nolan. Chapter 1. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. Key West, Florida. As Jake Wolfe drove his rented SUV along Caroline Street, he received orders from Washington, D.C. Orders to kill. His phone buzzed with a text message from Secret Service agent Shannon McKay. May I ask you a favor? No obligation and no compensation. Jake pulled over and parked. He knew that when orders began with a coded inquiry, it meant the details were top secret and on a need-to-know basis. He replied in a similar code. Yes, go ahead and ask, but I can't make any promises. There was a momentary pause. Could you help your uncle solve an impossible problem tonight? It's vitally important. He thought it over. This was bad timing. There had to be someone else who could solve the problem for Uncle Sam. Sorry, but I have a flight home to California scheduled on a friend's private jet this evening. Another pause. Finally, she replied, I'll ask your friend to wait and tell him it's an urgent matter. Jake knew she meant an urgent matter of national security and that his patriotic and wealthy attorney friend, Gregory Bartholomew, would often grant a favor to the Secret Service agent. As a weariness settled into his bones, Jake felt the need for peace and quiet at Juanita Yacht Harbor in Sausalito, California. He yearned to take his motor yacht, Far Niente, out on the ocean, far away from people and their problems. It was the best way for him to heal from his lingering PTSD. However, he also felt the weight of duty to America on his shoulders. He loved his country and would move mountains to protect her from terrorists and crime syndicates who saw every city full of US citizens as a target-rich environment. His Russian assassin friend, Dmitri, told him the Ruskaya Mafia called America the big store, where they could steal anything they wanted from trusting people. He texted McKay, Is this confirmed as a credible threat? She replied, Yes, a clear and present danger that requires your particular skills. He took a deep breath. You're sure my friend will delay the flight? McKay answered without hesitation. Affirmative. I guarantee it. Jake wondered how she could be so sure. Perhaps she'd already agreed to pay Bart's costly fee to charter his $20 million Gulfstream G550 jet and its crew. If he agreed to McKay's last-minute request to assassinate a high-value target tonight, he would be risking not only his own life, but also that of his adopted war dog, Cody. Few things in this world could scare him after all he'd been through, but he was fiercely protective of his beloved golden retriever. When Jake had served in the Marines as a war dog handler on deployments overseas, he and his IED-detected dog named Duke had been ambushed by terrorists. Jake never got over the death of his faithful dog. Just thinking about Duke caused the familiar post-traumatic stress anger to begin simmering, and he made a conscious effort to keep it under control. Can I work alone and not involve my canine? McKay replied in the affirmative. Yes, he can remain behind in your hotel room or rental car. With that reassurance, Jake made his decision. Although he'd already checked out of his hotel, Cody could wait in the vehicle. In that case, yes, my uncle can rely on me tonight. He kept it specific. He'd never say, my uncle can always rely on me. Every mission was a negotiation. McKay didn't push him for more or provide any details. Thank you. Stand by in Key West until sundown. Jake replied, Roger that. Pocketing his phone, he wondered what the mission he'd volunteered for would entail. The violent death of a high-value terrorist target But who, when, where, how, and why? Knowing the sun would set in about an hour, he drove to one of his favourite restaurants for dinner. If there was a chance he might be eating his last meal, he wanted it to be a good one. Jake managed to find a parking space in the busy lot next door, and then he and Cody walked over to the humble little Airstream trailer that served as a taco truck. It was a hidden gem in the backyard of a house turned into a bar. Typical Key West conch life. A teenage male employee at the window told a customer, "I'm sorry, your card was declined." The female customer had a young son with her, who might have been 7 years old. Jake thought they both looked hungry and worried. "Please try it again," the woman said, gazing at the 2 red serving baskets filled with cheeseburgers. Cody lifted his nose and smelled the food. Jake displayed some folding money to the cashier. "No worries, I'm buying. Please add their order to my tab. And I'm Jake. I called mine in." The mother blinked at him. "Thank you so much." "It's my pleasure, ma'am," Jake said. "I had good luck and won playing poker with friends. Now I'm simply paying it forward." The mother and son carried their burger baskets and bottles of apple juice to an outdoor table, sat down, and tore into the food like they hadn't eaten in a while. Jake paid for his usual taco trio that included a fish taco, a shrimp taco, and a barbecue beef taco. Surf and turf. For Cody, the catch of the day, 2 fillets of Dorado mahi-mahi grilled with butter and no spices. For his new friends, he added 2 slices of key lime pie. Jake set down the slices of pie and a $100 bill in front of the happily surprised mother and son. "Have a good evening." The boys said, "Thank you, sir." Jake smiled kindly. "Such good manners. Am I right, Cody?" Cody barked once, as he'd been trained to when he heard that question. The mother and son stared at the dog in wonder. Jake carried his dinners to the SUV, fed Cody the fillets, poured him a bowl of water, and then sat and enjoyed his dinner. As he ate, his thoughts turned to Agent McKay, who worked overtime at her office in the catacombs, the secret tunnels below the White House. She was in charge of an off-the-books shadowy group that protected American citizens from deadly threats the general public never heard about. The operation's existence was denied by the US government. Jake had recently been disavowed and removed from the top-secret team for going rogue and taking matters into his own hands to protect the greater good. He'd left a trail of destruction in his wake, but saved countless lives, had no regrets, and would do it again without hesitation. A congressional committee that investigated the unusual events and resulting fallout hadn't seen it that way. They wanted answers. They wanted a scapegoat to interrogate. They wanted to know top-secret intel. Jake didn't answer to clueless, bureaucratic pencil pushers on either side of the aisle. He walked alone. They could kiss his butt every day of the week, twice on Tuesday. Pucker up, buttercup. Despite Jake's non-active status, Agent McKay had contacted him on his encrypted phone. Now he knew why she'd allowed him to keep the unusual and costly device. After dinner, Jake drove to Higgs Beach Dog Park and let Cody off leash to get some exercise on the sun-bleached sand before the cross-country flight they'd catch if Jake survived the impromptu mission. They would both sleep through the night on Bart's jet and arrive on the West Coast in the early morning, where Jake's girlfriend, Sarah, patiently waited for their return. This work for the government always cut into his private life. Sarah was the only woman who'd been able to handle the danger. She was protective of Cody and understanding with Jake. Jake tossed a frisbee for his retriever to fetch again and again as the sun sank into the Gulf of Mexico and put on a beautiful light show display. He waited for the rare and fabled green flash, but it didn't appear. Most people who claimed to have seen it were liars telling sea stories, but that was part of the island life and Key's law that everyone loved. Once the sun had set, he received another text from the DC phone number. I'm calling you now. His phone buzzed in a specific pattern, indicating a call from McKay. He answered the video call using a software that resembled FaceTime or Skype, but more highly encrypted to Department of Defense specifications. Sitrep? This information is classified top secret, McKay said. Jake replied, Understood. Stand by one moment. Chapter 2. Taking a seat in his SUV along with Cody, Jake turned on the engine and AC and played a radio talk show for background noise. He held the phone down below window height and looked at McKay's worried face on the screen. She wore her usual dark grey suit, white blouse and quiet tie. This mission was requested by 4-star General Lloyd Clemens of the United States Marine Corps, McKay said. Jake sat up straighter. You're still working with the Marine recapture tactics teams? Most Americans never thought about how some Marines were allowed to fight on US soil. They protected the president and flew his helicopter, protected nuclear weapons on Navy bases and ships, and protected very important people from kidnapping attempts. According to the Post Comitatus Act, active duty military should not be deployed on US soil. However, these Marine teams were the exception because they worked within law enforcement units of the Marine Corps and specialized in police-like SWAT procedures. If terrorists managed to steal a nuclear weapon from a US naval installation or kidnap a VIP with top-secret knowledge, the USMC RTT would violently recapture the asset or die trying. Jake had recently fought beside RTT Marines on a top-secret assignment. Yes, General Clemens took control of the POETS, McKay said, referring to the President's Operational Emergency Team. He felt the group was too powerful to serve at the whim of some possibly unqualified future US president who would be temporarily in charge over a 4-year stretch. How did President Anderson feel about that? Jake had met Daniel Anderson and First Lady Catherine before they were elected, when Daniel was a congressman. The president agreed it was a job for RTT Marines and that a Marine general should be in command of them. Smart move to have General Clemens on board, Jake said. That man is a legend. Every Marine respects him. Here's where you come in. The Venezuelan communist government is freeing prison inmates serving time for murder, assault, rape, and robbery. The communists send these dangerous convicted criminals to the US, where they enter illegally. Jake cursed. What's their agenda? They seek to destabilize American communities through the intentional mass distribution of dangerous drugs. I heard about communist cocaine, Jake said. Yes, Venezuela's hyperinflation killed their economy and created a cocaine superhighway to the US in a desperate attempt to bring in cash, McKay said. The country went from a 1% share of the global market to a 25% share. I read that the United States charged Venezuela's president and 14 of his top government officials with narco-terrorism, Jake said. It's sad how the good people of Venezuela have to suffer under a rogue regime. McKay said, It gets worse, far worse. Now the regime is using violent criminals to smuggle xylazine into the United States. Homeland has designated the leaders as Tier 1 drug kingpins and terrorists, pursuant to the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act. What in the world is xylazine? Jake said. A veterinary drug widely used as a horse tranquilizer. On the street they call it trank. And people on the street buy it and use it, knowing to use this animal tranquilizer to get high, knowing it could kill them. Yes, and this gang is mixing xylazine with fentanyl, McKay said. The combination is extremely dangerous. People are dropping dead from overdoses all across America. The absolute disaster we're seeing is that xylazine isn't an opiate and it doesn't respond to naloxone. Jake took a deep breath and let it out. So if someone overdoses on xylazine, Narcan isn't going to save their life. No coming back. The victim's heart stops abruptly, and they're listed on the death report as non-responsive. He thought it over for a moment. Why would drug dealers want to kill off their paying customers? McKay said, the NSA is picking up chatter about a hostile foreign nation paying vast sums to kill US citizens via this animal drug. Jake paused. A secret war? How widespread is the problem?